Good afternoon. My name is Vikas. I'm the founder and CEO of T4 Education. We've been bringing to you a series of conversations with finalists of the Africa Education Medal. If you remember, last January, we had an entire summit called the Transforming Education in Africa Summit. And this is an extension of that, where our effort is to put in front of you and to learn about incredible change makers who are transforming education in Africa. And so the medal, which is in partnership with HP and Microsoft, what it does is it surfaces just the most incredible stories of excellence and of leadership, impact, and advocacy for education. We all know about the challenges that exist. They are huge, actually. When you look at the subjects of equity, you look at the subject of inclusion, you just look at basic things like foundational literacy and numeracy. If you look at the data, you'll be quite despondent as to what's happening. But we cannot remain in that state. That is not the way that we inspire people to make change. And the way we do that, in our opinion, is by putting forward just the most incredible people who are at the coalface of education, at the coalface of the society, who are doing things. Those days where we cite people who have done incredible things from our past histories, which is great, but I do think that we live amongst some giants today that need recognition or need to be recognized for the incredible things that they do, so that we can all rally behind them and really support their work. In that respect, the Africa Educational Medal is meant to be an accelerator for impact. And it does so by making sure that many people find out about these people and their causes. So without further ado, I want to invite 3 of our finalists here today to come and tell you about their stories, and we'll have an interaction with them. Please welcome Snehar Shah, Grace Mathalpe, and Rogers Patrick Kambagusha from Educate in Rwanda. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So what we have in the 3 of you are 3 finalists, all in different countries in Africa. I want to go to Snehar first. Snehar, tell us a little bit about the work of Moringa School and what drives the organization, what drives you.
Thank you, Vikas. First of all, it's really an honor to be a finalist for the Africa Education Medal. So first of all, just to dispel any myth, as Moringa, we don't sell vegetables. Moringa, as you know, is a superfood. And our mission, my mission, is to supercharge the youth in Africa. So Moringa School is a boot camp tech training organization. We provide an alternative for students going to university. And in this day and age, if anyone wants to work in tech, they don't need to spend tens of thousands of dollars paying university fees, the accommodation, living expenses over 3 to 4 years. At Moringa School, our students can be trained within 5 months in an intense boot camp model, and we help them get placed into jobs. So our mission is quite aligned with actually the Kenyan government's mission, which is to make a country like Kenya a tech hub to provide smart digital talent to work in the global marketplace.
And so, Sneha, before we move over to our next guest, tell us in terms of like what motivates you to do this, because this is as much a personal prize as it is for Moringa.
Absolutely. So first of all, I have been born and brought up in Kenya. Our family is a fourth generation here. And when I was young, actually, our family migrated to the UK, where I did my initial schooling, university, and some work. I got an opportunity to come back to this country 15 years ago. And I started off in corporate, but Moringa is my third startup. And actually, in my 25 years of work that I've been doing, I'm thoroughly enjoying this. This is the best time of my life because I'm really, giving back to my country. I'm making a difference to the youth here, and really, setting themselves up to really advance on a career path. So far, we've trained 7,000 students, and we're just at the tip of the iceberg. So it's really creating that impact which motivates me.
So I'm going to come back to a question I want to ask you, and please remember this. The question is, when you see boot camps all over the place, and what you do is what was once done by universities. When you think about what you do, what is the role of universities then? When you see these very expensive degrees being taught, but I'll come back to you on that. I want to bring in Grace. Grace, welcome to this live stream. Tell us about your incredible work that you do.
Thank you very much, Vikas, and congratulations to Sneha and Rogers for making it this far, along with me as finalists, and thanks to you and the sponsors. So what Smart Start is an early learning social franchise. We're responding to the challenge of a lot of children in South Africa who are preschoolers not having a strong foundation in learning. And so we have built this delivery platform that involves other partners who help us to set up these early learning practitioners delivering our program from their homes. We draw from a powerful but sort of idle asset in thousands of amazing women across South Africa that we pull into the network, we train them, we support them to deliver quality early learning from their homes. And so really that way we are dealing with two of the biggest challenges of access to early childhood education. It's the problem of workforce. We don't have a big enough workforce for the number of children that need early learning, and we don't have venues. We don't have places to educate children from. So we're using these assets that are already there in the various communities, as well as community spaces and halls and churches and so on.
Grace, what drew you to the sector?
So I mean, I have worked in social justice for a very long time, and you know, as you were saying in your introduction, we can really belabor the challenges and talk about poverty and inequality, but when you find something like early childhood education that holds so much promise in really reversing all of these challenges, you can't help but be drawn to it. That's what drew me to it. I've worked with young people, I've worked in health, and I am really aware of South Africa's challenges in education outcomes, and knowing that early childhood education is, and there's all of this evidence around the world that keeps reminding us that early childhood education is just about one of the most important investments that a country can make in human capital to ensure not just short and medium term educational success, but economic success for countries as well in the long term.
Well, Grace, I'm going to speak to you a little bit about, as we go on, about the impact of your work. If you just have a think in terms of like, how do you articulate your impact, given that you're a social franchise? I will come back to that. Rogers, welcome to our live stream and our interview today. Thank you so much for taking part, and thank you for what you do. Tell us a little bit about your work at Educate.
Thank you so much. At Educate, we recognize that there is a very big gap between what students get while at school and what they find after school. We also recognize that in the next 10 years or 20, secondary age bracket will double. And since then, we want to make sure that we cross those two gaps. We want to make sure that we close the gap that exists between what students find after school. We want to make sure that we close the unemployment gap. And how we do that is that we partner with governments to reform education, make it more meaningful, make it more relevant, make it more user-friendly. And one of the things that is very exciting for the work we do is that we work with governments we co-design with government to ensure that they achieve their goals, they achieve their priorities, looking at different education areas, especially assessment, curriculum, informal structures, where we believe that, for example, something very simple like a club is a very big platform where students can practice skills that they could have learned from class. They can be able to see real life outside classroom, and creating such structures even outside class and incorporating them in educational reforms has motivated us to where we do and what we do.
Rogers, what was your starting point?
I'll look at it from the two folds. As an individual, I look at it from the perspective that personally I did not get any mentorship. I did not see the role of education. When I was growing up, for me, my inspiration was to be a lawyer. I didn't know if a lawyer was going to solve any community problem, but I knew if you become a lawyer, then you'd inspire most of the people and you'd be happy. And now after seeing that mentorship and career guidance is very important, I believe that education should be looking at areas of mentorship and career guidance. So I was motivated as an individual really to join education space, given that I'm not even coming from education space. I did business economics, but I'm motivated to be in education because I know it's in education where you can have an impact and impact millions. Now, as an organization, over the last 10 years, I think we have seen that most countries in Africa are reforming education, right? So we want to be able to be supportive in the process. It is a very serious journey. Everyone says they have reformed education, but we still have many gaps. And so being part of that journey of supporting the government as an organization, as an individual to reform education really has inspired me to do what I do.
Can you, I'm going to come back to you and ask you this question. What do you think motivates education ministers? But I'll come back to that, okay? Because I know in your job title, it says Africa Reform Director. And so I'm going to ask you about, well, what is it that you see with education ministers around Africa? But without further ado, I do want to bring this back to Snehar and talk about this stuff. But before I do that, let's have a look. We have Marin who says, looking forward to this conversation. Bushra Afreen, looking forward to this amazing conversation. Josefina, one of my colleagues, watching from Buenos Aires in Argentina. Kalyani Rao saying, namaste from India. She's a country ambassador of ours. Alida, I don't know where you are, Alida, but hello. Buse, watching from Ankara in Turkey. That's closer to Africa, that's for sure. I'm sorry, Zora, I can't read your script. I don't know what it says, but I thank you so much for participating. Then we have Yash Chavan saying, awesome sessions. Well, thank you so much. Tarek is watching from Egypt. Thank you so much. Alejandra, an old friend of ours. Hello, everyone watching from Buenos Aires. can you believe it? We also have someone from Iceland, which is fantastic. Thank you for joining in. And like that, Afshin is talking from Karachi in Pakistan. Phenomenal. I don't know who you are. I apologize. Your journeys and the missions of your organizations are truly inspiring. Tuning in from Dubai. This is hello. I'm Cods from Tunisia, and then we have someone from India, and on it goes. So you can see that there's a lot of interest in what you're all doing, which is fantastic because everyone thinks like by learning about your work, they can perhaps implement in their countries, which I think is a great point about the African education model. Snehar, come back to the question I asked you, sir. Talk to me about what is the role of university given what you do as a bootcamp business.
Sure, Vikas. So, first of all, we are not trying to compete against universities. I think university education, is important for the right segment of the population. So, if one wants to do a training and become a doctor, you need to go to university. If you want to become an engineer, yes, probably. What we are offering is really, practical training using a bootcamp model. But we're also somehow benefiting because in our part of the market in Africa, unfortunately, in many places, the university model is broken. It's really theoretical, very traditional, which doesn't apply to what the requirements are in a world where things like AI are becoming very mainstream. And I think we also try to complement universities. We really want to partner with universities. And to give you an example, I was in London last year and going on the underground. There was actually a South African boot camp who was advertising doing tech training in partnership with, for example, University of Edinburgh or the Russell Group of universities. And I think in a post-COVID world, a lot of the Western universities have realized that there is a gap in the market, and there's an opportunity to do like very niche specialist trainings as far as tech is concerned. And I was really inspired to see those kind of adverts where we see sort of reverse innovation, if you like, happening, where talent from Africa is being used to train students in the UK and Europe, etc. And we as Moringa School would also love to follow those kind of trends with the expertise that we've developed in the bootcamp model. So we're really very open to work with universities not only in Africa but in far wide countries as well.
And so what is your impact? I mean, we talk about I'm sure the impact must lie in you have these young people that come in, you get them jobs. Can you give us some numbers?
Yeah, absolutely. So to date, we've trained 7,000 students. That's just in Kenya. And we currently have a 75% plus job placement rate. And I would also like to, challenge universities, do they even track these kind of metrics? Would they be at such high levels? We don't only track the job placement rates, but we also track the career and salary progression of our alumni. So for example, last year, we did an extensive survey with around 1,000 of our alumni. And what we found is on average, a Moringa graduate, or their first starting salary is something like $350 a month, which is more than double the national minimum wage in our market. And then with every year of experience that our graduates get, their salaries almost doubled. So if you take a Moringa graduate with, say, 3 years of work experience, on average, they're earning something like $1,200 a month, which is actually quite a decent income. But the top quartile, for example, are earning as much as $3,000 to $5,000 a month, which could be quite comparable to some of the Western countries. A lot of them are doing remote jobs for some of the global employers and some of the global tech recruitment platforms. So those are the impact that we're getting, and that's because of our focus on the quality that we're doing. Because we're not a self-placed platform. We are leveraging a lot of technology, but it's using live learning, using expert tutors for our software development, data science courses, and we're also diversifying that. So those are the kind of impacts that we're making at Moringa.
Well, we have some more people who are watching from all over the world. I can't tell your name, but you're saying hello from New York City. Yunia from Uganda. Tessa is watching from Cape Town, Grace, your neck of the woods. Huh? We have Buddha. I have a statue of Buddha behind me, but now we also have a comment from the same Buddha. Thank you for joining us. We have Michael from Uganda, from Eastern Uganda. We have Mark from Cameroon. We have a couple of friends from the Philippines. Must be quite late in the Philippines, right? Well done, Cinderella. Ruxana, hi, good evening. She's from Pakistan. Somi Saha says return to higher education versus TVET needs to be measured over long term and not just in the short term. Sneha, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're measuring the impact that we're making over the last 3 to 5 years that we've been operating. So that's exactly what we're doing. Yeah.
Grace, I want to come to you now, ma'am. When you talk about your work in terms of making sure that you train all these people to actually do early childhood education in their own homes, tell us in terms of what is the impact you've seen. I mean, how long have you been running Smart Start? What have been some of the figures? Flesh that out for us. You're on mute.
I'm back. We've been running for just over 7 years now. And perhaps our greatest achievement is the fact that 7 years later, we actually see that we're continuing to grow, that there's a model in place that is delivering promising outcomes. We did our first child outcomes evaluation a few years ago, and we're amazed at the child outcomes a program as pragmatic as ours is able to achieve. That has to be the most important thing, right? Because in fact, that is the point of what we are doing, to make sure that we prepare children much better for school so that we set them on the right trajectory for learning and lifelong success. Since we were established, we've reached in excess of 170,000 children. We've set up significant numbers of franchisees. Currently, we have 9,000 franchisees operating across South Africa, which is pretty significant because each one of them has a minimum of 6 children that they can work with, but potentially could reach as many as 20 children, and a significant number of our franchisees and themselves, all of our franchisees make a living. So we have created an opportunity for women whose value in society has been perhaps undervalued, but at least underutilized. And we've drawn from these women and created some amazing early childhood development practitioners, started them on a journey that they are in control of, and they professionalize at their own pace, but really solidly rooted in quality early learning and quality interactions with children. Each child who comes into the Smart Start network creates an opportunity for a parent, very often a mother, to go out and seek employment. One of our partner organizations here in South Africa, Harambee, shares a really important statistic about how significant numbers of young women fail to show up for job interviews because they don't have access to childcare for their children. So each one of these 9,000 places that we've set up creates opportunities for mothers usually to go out and seek employment, and even the confidence to go after promotion opportunities within their jobs, knowing that their children are well cared for and well trained. So the value, the benefit of early childhood education is multi-generational. It's this investment we're making in this generation of children for long-term success, is the immediate opportunity it creates for their parents in actual economic returns, and it's an immediate livelihood that we create for a woman who has before now not been in employment and has not been able to build livelihood for their families.
Grace, in terms of like, it's no surprise that you're a finalist of the Africa Education Medal, by the way. Given the work that you do and the excellence that you demonstrate, what have been some of the high points since we announced you as a finalist?
Yeah, so I can tell you, Vikas, that one of the things we assumed when we started Smart Start was that if you set up the supply of early learning, demand will come in, that parents will come forward and take up that demand. We have found that there is a need to build the depth of understanding of just how powerful early childhood education is. And so I think, just being mentioned as one of education programs worth mentioning as innovation for long-term success of education on the continent is a powerful achievement for early childhood education. Recognizing that early childhood education is education and education worth investing in. That on its own is really a powerful opportunity for us. Apart from the fact that, it creates an opportunity to share the success with potential stakeholders in government, in philanthropy, and other partners that we'd like to draw into early childhood education, because it's not just a social or education issue. As I was saying, it really is the issue of setting countries up for long-term success. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. And Rogers, I come to you, given that your mission is to partner with government to help them deliver on their ambitious reform programs. Tell us, what have you learned about partnership with government?
I've learned many things. Thanks, Vikas. I think the first thing I've learned is that selling is not about giving a solution. I learned about that, I think, from the process of where we have worked with different governments within East African region, where I believed that if you want to support the reform process in education, you have to bring a solution on table and tell the minister, this is what we want to give you. I was forgetting that it's about their priorities, it's about understanding the customers. And so through learning of that process, I learned that co-designing is very important, because when you co-design, you're speaking the same language. When you co-design, you put yourself in the shoes of the minister, you put yourself in the shoes of the president, you put yourself in the shoes of the global economy. At that moment, you're speaking big, you're all speaking the same language, and they're likely to support you in the co-designing process. The solution that you put on table is 100% going to be incorporated in their policies. It's not going to be for Educate, it's not going to be for Rogers. Why? Because of understanding what they want to solve and telling them that we can go through this process as partners to help reform education, to help make it more meaningful, to make it more practical, to make it more relevant, to reduce school dropout rates, to reduce unemployment. And when you start speaking such language, then they come on table. And so I think for me, that's a very core thing that I've learned, and it gives me a lot of confidence, even when I go to Tanzania, which is just trying to adapt their education. I have a lot of case study, I have a lot of experience that I can share to the minister in Tanzania, that this is what we have learned, this is how we have done it. We are willing to come and learn with you in this reform process.
And so, Rogers, the question I have to ask you, and because there's an overwhelming narrative that says that government is failing. Do you have a view on that?
I would want to change that and say that I think governments are putting a lot of efforts and resources. If you look at, for example, Kenya, they have invested their biggest budget in education. If you look at Rwanda, they've also invested the biggest percentage in education. At least they have increased it. And for me, that's a success. They are recognizing that education is the benchmark of any success, right? And I think because I always tell people that education has to involve everyone if we are to succeed, right away from the parents, right away from even the child that we are trying to nurture. They need to understand the value of education if we are able really to make it more meaningful and relevant for the economy, right? And so I wouldn't say that the governments are failing. I would say I think the governments are putting a lot of efforts really to solve those problems that are global, to solve gender-associated problems, to solve poverty, to solve unemployment issues, and they believe that it can only be a success through education. Because these kids spend over 18 years in school. So if you don't reform education, if you don't make it meaningful, if you don't put a lot of resources in education, what are you providing? What are you producing for the economy? I guess that's why we have these problems. But I think they are trying their level best to bring everyone on board. Governments are really calling upon different partners to support in education, in the early childhood, in secondary education, in university, in TVET, in all areas, knowing that it is everyone's effort, it is everyone's involvement that will make them succeed.
Rogers, it strikes me, I should ask all three of you as we conclude this interview, what has been your biggest success? And more importantly, what's your biggest failure?
That's a good one. I think I will look at my success on individual basis. Over the last 7 years, when we reformed education in Rwanda, I was part of the people who were advising the different syllabi, and I was participating more in entrepreneurship as a subject, because we believe that if you form entrepreneurship or have entrepreneurship content in secondary age bracket, you're likely to create more employment opportunities. Now, the way we are doing it in Rwanda as a case study is that it was a struggle. Working with government is not something that is easy. It was a struggle. We are learning. We are trying to co-design. We are testing out different approaches. We are being tossed there and there because they are not seeing the sense. Of course, later on, we started being on the same board. And so for me, the biggest success is to use the same process and go to Tanzania and create a subject which they didn't have. They didn't have a business studies subject as a core, as comparative subject for all students. It was optional. And convince them that they need this subject. They need this subject in secondary level education because it is the basis. It is both an art and a science. It's the basis of everything if they are to succeed. If I was a student of science, whether biology or chemistry or English, I need entrepreneurship, because it is through entrepreneurship that I can be able to put into play what I have learned in the real classroom, and I can take it outside and see meaningful, and I see life. And so for me, that's the biggest success, that I could be able to walk the same journey in Tanzania, this time with a lot of confidence, without fear and favor, that this is what they need, because I have evidence. I can bring them to Rwanda and they see it, and I am confident because I know what I did in Rwanda, right? Now, on the other side of failure is value is not about where you have succeeded sometimes. Value is about context. You may succeed 100% in Rwanda, but you may not succeed 100% in Kenya, because they have a different environment. They have different people. They have a lot of different political pressures. You may speak a lot of things you have done in Rwanda, but they may not actually work. So for me, I look at it as a failure or something that I am trying to learn from it by first understanding the environment. Take a lot of time to understand the environment from the people perspective, from the policy perspective, from the culture perspective. If you put a lot of attention and energy understanding the environment in that context, then I think it helps you to start speaking the same language, even in other countries that may have a different environment. So for me, it's a lesson, because I think, as I said from the start, I thought selling is about presenting where you have succeeded. No, it goes beyond that value you created in another country to understanding the context that you want to operate from.
Thank you for sharing that. Grace, I come to you in reverse order. Same questions, success and failure.
Failure, yeah. I was just hoping Rogers will continue go on and on to give me more time to think. As I was saying, I have worked in social justice for a long time, and really success is pretty much a relative term. There are certain things that you do really well, and sometimes you have to be proud of little triumphs, not big ones. But I think Smart Start as a delivery platform that has managed to attract a really powerful network of partners and staff and practitioners, as I was describing them, some of the most inspiring people I've met. It's right up there with what I sort of call success. And in terms of failures, I mean, I've made a lot of mistakes, and you don't really achieve too much if you are afraid to make those mistakes. So one of the things I think of now, and I tried not to mention it, but it keeps coming up as top of my mistake list. In my previous role, one of the previous roles I performed, I was running an organization that was also innovating solutions for some of South Africa's biggest challenges. And, in one of those roles, I made a mistake for a program when it was ready and mature, instead of finding stability and sustainability in the social sector where innovation continues to happen. I agreed to transfer the program into government, who is not necessarily equipped and able and quick-footed enough to continue innovation. And so I count that as one of my biggest mistakes. As I say, I have made many, but I guess if I didn't make those mistakes, I wouldn't be able to apply those lessons in what I'm doing now.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And Sneha, finally.
Yeah, so I mean, of course, there's many successes and failures to talk about. What is relevant here is, I think, to culminate all the work that we've been doing to date and to get the recognition to be a finalist, for the Africa Education Medal. I think that's one I would count, as a success, as an endorsement for the work that we've been doing. And just to also mention, following the announcement of this award. Actually, the next day I got invited to meet with the Minister of ICT here in Kenya, and they have engaged Moringa School to be sort of a sport partner, where the minister has actually mandated us to go and survey all the global tech jobs available, and then to work backwards to see now where are our opportunities to use our Kenyan talent to serve those needs. So I think that's been quite an honor. And secondly, also, I think many people might not be aware of this, but our current ambassador to the US is a lady called Meg Whitman, who used to be the CEO of HP globally. She's a business person who's been placed in Kenya strategically to, again, help transform our economy to become a digital economy to play in the global landscape. And also glad to see that the award has been supported by HP as well. And in the second half of this year, we have been invited to go to the US together with Meg Whitman on a roadshow to basically showcase the work that we've been doing to the Silicon Valley and to a couple of other cities, including New York. So I would count, those as our success. In terms of failure, something to share is that last year, on the back of the success we've had in this one country, we tried to penetrate in West Africa, where we launched some cohorts in both Ghana and Nigeria. Unfortunately, the timing wasn't great because that's when also the Forex crisis hit those countries. But what we realized is that, it would take quite a lot in terms of investment to build our brand in those countries. And also what we realize is the affordability in that part of the market may not be similar to what we're seeing here in East Africa. So I think through that experience, we got some amazing learnings, and we're actually implementing those learnings. So for example, in Nigeria, we've just launched a cohort which is through what we call the income sharing model, where the Nigerian students only pay a 10% deposit for the training, and the rest they pay once they get a certain job which pays beyond a certain threshold of salary, and then the students are obliged to pay back to the financier a certain percentage of their salaries over a certain period of time. So I think those kind of experiences have forced us to think creatively and to innovate, to basically find solutions to any challenges that we face. So that's one I was happy to share.
It's no surprise that the three of you are finalists of the African Education Medal. Congratulations to all of you. We announced the winner of the African Education Medal on the 6th of July. Please know that I keep my fingers crossed for each one of you. But I've said to all of you, prizes are brutal. The gain is to society in learning about your work and to get behind you. And so please know that you have our sincere thanks for everything that you do, and know that in T4 you have a partner that wishes you the very best and wants to help you accelerate your work. On that note, I bid our viewers farewell, and I look forward to the next opportunity, which is next week, where we interview some more finalists of our Africa Education Medal. On that note, have a good afternoon, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.